We now turn to our next segment, which is another keynote dialogue. And our featured speaker is going to be Mr. Denis O'Brien. Denis O'Brien is the chairman and principal shareholder of a privately owned Digicel group, one of the fastest growing cellular companies in the world with annual revenues in excess of $2.5 billion. Mr. O'Brien founded Digicel in 2001 when the company launched GSM cellular phone service in the Caribbean. The Digicel Group has successfully extended its operations to 31 markets with over 13.5 million subscribers throughout the Caribbean, Central and South America region, and the Asian Pacific region. Mr. O'Brien was voted Ireland's Entrepreneur of the Year in 1998, the inaugural running of the worldwide competition organized and sponsored by Ernst & Young. And Mr. O'Brien is also the director of a number of other private companies, including Quinta del Lago SA and Communicore Group Limited. So clearly he's a very successful entrepreneur. But in addition, Mr. O'Brien is also the chairman and co-founder of Frontline, the International Foundation for the Protection of Human Rights Defenders, and a member of the board of Concern Worldwide. He also chaired the 2003 Special Olympics World Summer Games in Ireland, and this was the first time that the Summer Games were staged outside the U.S. With teams from over 160 countries and over 30,000 volunteers involved in that effort. In 2000, Denis O'Brien established the Iris O'Brien Foundation to identify and assist projects in Ireland and internationally which aim to alleviate disadvantaged communities. In 2010, he was named Goodwill Ambassador for the city of Port-au-Prince in Haiti by the mayor of Port-au-Prince in recognition of his efforts to rebuild Haiti after the devastating earthquake that they had there in January of that year. Digicel is also the single largest private investor in Haiti. In addition, in 2012, he was a recipient of the Clinton Global Citizen Award and the Clinton Initiative for Corporate Leadership of Work in Haiti after the earthquake. And you see, he's also a very humble man. He doesn't brag about all of his work.
I'm here. Thanks a million.
But it's wonderful stuff, and you should know about it. So thank you very much for being here, Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you.
And again, like our earlier keynote dialogue, this will be done in a sort of a talk show format, but with our guest here with us today, with, of course, Dr. Armen Orujyan. So take it away, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you.
All right, are we connected? All right.
Great.
Denis,
Thank you very much.
thanks for being here. We're here.
I was embarrassed by that introduction.
No, you deserve all of it.
You're very generous, and thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's great to be here.
It's a privilege to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
We're here with students and young entrepreneurs from over 50 countries, representing over 50 countries, and by the end of our 3 days, we're going to walk away with a number of startups that is going to be built by them. Earlier today, we had an opportunity to speak to our colleague, President Kagame, directly from Rwanda. And now today, with you, we want to talk a little bit, Denis, about entrepreneurship. When did you know that you were an entrepreneur?
Very early on. My father was an entrepreneur, or is an entrepreneur. He's 86. He still is running his own business. Oh, wow. But he had a small business. But he used to give me a lift as a child to school, and I would ask him what he was doing that day. And he used to tell me about his business. Only had maybe 6 or 7 people employed. And he'd tell me about people not paying him, new products that he was trying to develop, and then trying to get new markets around the world for his products. And I just was fascinated. Then he'd come home at night and he'd change and get out of his suit, and then I'd ask him more questions. And then over dinner, we would be still talking about people who hadn't paid him and what the bank was saying to him and the pressure he was under. So, it was kind of, it was in the air. Yeah. And, I said to myself, God, I would love to go and work for myself. And, when I look at entrepreneurship, I think, if you just employ yourself, I think that's absolutely brilliant. If you employ 1 or 2 other people, that's fantastic. And I think, in the world today that we live in, small companies with 2, 3, 4 people are even more important than companies employing 10,000 people. And the heartland of emerging economies is companies that entrepreneurs that employ a few people, a handful of people, and then if the opportunity is big enough and they can get enough fuel or capital, to go to 20, 30, 40 people, and then whatever happens after that. So I think people say, God, that's a fantastic person. She developed a company that employs 1,000 people. But, I think the person that employs 2 people is everybody as good.
Of course. Did you ever work for your father's business?
I did, yeah. I worked in sales. I came to North America. I had he produces horse care products, so vitamin and mineral products for horses. And I set up, a retail chain. Went to all these retailers. I used to do 14 calls a day. I'd rent the cheapest car I could get my hands on in Kennedy Airport, and I'd drive the whole east coast of America. Wow. And then I'd write a letter, because this is before email, to everybody that I met. They just couldn't believe that. And I did that, and then one night, I was all the time looking for an opportunity, and it's, I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. The opportunity that you pick to set up a business is really all about luck. And my piece of luck was I was in a small little motel in Kentucky, and they called the El Dorado Inn. It was $22 a night. And I was scanning the TV, because in Ireland we only had 2 channels. And I said, wow, 40 channels, And next thing I see this thing called the Home Shopping Television Network. And I said, bingo, that is my idea. And the next day I actually went down to Florida where they were headquartered, and I blagged my way in. I said I wanted to set up a shopping channel in Europe. And the guy brought me in and he showed me everything, okay? And then I went to the UK, set up the business, and I used a jigsaw. I used everybody else's assets. I had a call center, I had a mail order partner for the product, and we put it all together. But the only problem was, it was way before satellite and cable TV,
right?
And we had no audience. And in the first month, we had £14,000 of sales and $500,000 of loss. So I knew that equation was a pretty bad one. And eventually the business went on for about 2 years, and it was an example of being too early with your idea, but also having not enough capital to kind of ride the wave out.
So how did you raise capital?
I went to other business people in Ireland, kind of pushed my way in the door, and I raised about $1.5 million. But I really needed 10 million.
How long did it take you?
It took me about 8 months to do it. It was, that was, at the time, Ireland was very underdeveloped from a capital point of view.
Right.
So I was raising, $150,000 at a time, and put 10 investors together, and that was it. And then my investors, they lost their money in the shopping channel, but luckily I got a broadcasting license for a radio station, because the government used to have all the radio stations, and then they liberalized it. And I made the money back from my investors. And it was kind of a lesson, because when my first business failed, the shopping channel, I actually went to see my investors and looked them in the eye, and I said, look, I'm sorry, I made a complete bollocks of it. I didn't deliver what I said I'd do, but I want to apologize. And only 1 out of the 10 investors went crazy with me in the meeting.
When you say crazy, what do you mean?
Well, he started, oh, you this, that, and the other, name calling. And I said, look, I'm sorry, I'm here, but that's it. But in the end, I was able to give my investors all their money back, and we made money. So, sometimes, I think if you lose your first business, you learn a lot. I'm not recommending it. And when I went down, when that business went into effectively bankruptcy, you normally hide, okay? But I went out, I met everybody, and I just kept going.
Right.
And what really saved me was I went and did a triathlon. Now, I don't look as if I could do a triathlon today, but I did a triathlon because I knew if I could sleep at night, you make the right decisions.
Right.
When people have a crisis, they don't sleep, you're looking at the ceiling and you're saying, oh my God, what am I doing? You make all your wrong decisions.
Correct.
And I forced myself to be so physically tired that I had to go to sleep. And so failure is not a bad thing. In America, it's great. the attitudes to failure.
Right.
But some smaller countries like Ireland, attitudes to failure weren't great.
Any of the previous investors, they reinvested with you, the ones that you failed?
I all on good relationships with them, One guy lost a lot of money that he couldn't lose. So, in later years, when I had a successful telecoms business, which I IPO'd in NASDAQ, I gave him a check the next day for what he lost. He lost $750,000.
But many years before
This
that.
was, he lost some money 8 years previously.
That's
I
not
just
bad.
went back, I gave him the money, because I could afford it at the time. And
Right.
I said it made me feel good. I was under no compliment then.
Of course.
But I'm not recommending that if you have a failure that you then try and make it up for the rest of your life, because life doesn't work that way. But there are certain special circumstances where you should.
Were there any significant lessons that you've learned from whether from the failure or from your initial successes that have stayed with you throughout?
I think trying to identify where you're weak. Okay, I'm not good on personnel, but you need somebody who knows how to hire people. I wouldn't have the patience to listen to somebody for 2 hours in an interview. Okay, so I'm not great at that. Okay, I'll meet them for 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the process and say, yeah, instinctively, do I like the person? And then you need a very good finance person. So you need to look in the mirror and say, where am I weak? And then put good people in around you. Now, if you're only a small company of 1 or 2 people, that's very difficult. But what I tapped into was people who retired. Executives in Ireland who retired at 55, who'd worked for big multinationals, and they knew how to manage big projects. And there is a whole layer of these people in most countries in the world, okay? Not so much in underdeveloped countries. And I asked them to come on my board, and then I would have a monthly board meeting, and I would have to report to them, even though I was the principal shareholder.
Are
what
you
I did.
retiring anytime soon?
No.
No, good.
No.
All right.
So I think you got to say, I'm weak in this area, but if I bring somebody in, I think also to share the pie, just give shares to people. But if they leave you, they have to give the shares back. The mistake is sometimes you give shares to people and then they give up or they go and take a job because it's just too tough. And then they're left with the shares and, you've another owner that's left the business. And that's not a good thing.
Let's switch gear. Let's speak a little bit about Digicel.
Yeah.
When did you found Digicel?
I found it in a coffee shop in Dublin. I just sold a business in Ireland, which was a telecommunications business. And when you sell your business, you're gone. And on the one hand, there's great euphoria because you feel fantastic, okay? But it is a very bittersweet experience. Your goal all along is to be financially secure and to build something. And then the day it happens, the next day, you're out of a job, you have no desk, you have no phone, you have nobody to work with, you have no colleagues, you have no fun. Okay, all your friends are working in other businesses, and I was drinking cups of coffee, and reading the Financial Times every day. And one day, I was reading the Financial, I saw this little shitty ad, okay, for a mobile phone license in Jamaica. And so I rang a few of my former colleagues. I said, I found another one, okay? And they said, what is it? I said, Jamaica. So we got one of the guys to go down. We asked 3 questions. How many people live in Jamaica? 2.6 million. What's penetration of mobile phone services? 5%. And what were prices like? And prices were like a rocket, okay? Crazy prices, like $1 a minute. So one night, there was an auction in Jamaica, and we had this guy. We were all in a pub in Ireland drinking rum, because I remember that we better drink something that's kind of akin to Jamaica. And we bid $47 million. And he had a bank draft for 20 as a deposit. And we bought this. I'd never been to Jamaica. We'd only asked the 3 questions. And the next morning, I woke up in a complete panic, because I said, oh my God, this is either going to be a hell of a mistake or luck. And we got a few people, and we sent them down. We got a room like this, trestle tables, And in Jamaica, because it was a former British colony, they had, all the Jamaican companies, because they're run by British managers, would have all these wonderful offices. And the staff would be one class, and the managers would be the other class, okay? So we just changed all that, and everybody was the same. And we started the business up with a better network than our competitor. We got 300,000 customers, which is way ahead of our plan. And then we got to we've now 77% of the market in Haiti or in Jamaica, and we overran this company called Cable and Wires, which was a colonial company.
Okay.
And they just didn't really the big mistake people make in emerging markets is to treat customers badly because, well, it'll do, that kind of service, that'll be okay. And the best thing we did was we said, hey, these guys are as good as a German customer, a British customer, and an American customer. We're going to give them near second billing, good pricing, proper networks, and we're going to treat them as if they are first world client. And that really changed things because we then got everybody, women living on the side of a mountain doing small farming. They could talk to their son who was driving a taxi in New York, and for like cents a minute.
So you were both competitive and you provided better experience?
Much better experience, okay? And I think if you're setting up a business and you're going to compete with somebody, you have to say, well, what's the point of difference? Your service has to be better and different to the other guys. Like, there's no point me going and setting up a Walmart beside a Walmart. And, the biggest mistakes a lot of people do is they do a Me Too product instead of coming with something completely different, something much more innovative. And that was our philosophy. And then what happened was that all the governments in the Caribbean then saw the benefits of liberalization, and they all liberalized together. So we were setting up new networks every 3 months and opening up countries every 3 months for about 4 years. Then we bought about 5 different businesses. And I suppose the way to finance these things, if you have a big opportunity, I wouldn't be afraid to ask for lots of money, from investors. Sometimes if you ask for a lot of money, people will take you more seriously. It's kind of counterintuitive. If I go in and say to somebody, give me $1,000, they say, geez, this guy must be on his knees. If I go in and say, give me $100,000, they say, wow, he must have something or she must have something that I want to invest in. And the psychology of greed, investors, it's an emotion. And it's something, that is, you can smell it sometimes. And you say, I'm going to ask for so much more money, and you'll get it. And, and that kind of, we started our business in a very small way, and then we raise more money, raise more money. And it's a matter of having enough money at any one time to take up your opportunities.
When did you move to Jamaica?
We did that we started in 2002, and then we went to Haiti. We put $160 million into Haiti when nobody would put money into Haiti.
Is this before or after the disaster?
It is way before the disaster of the earthquake. And we went into all these countries. And to be fair, the IFC here, they gave us project financing. And they gave us a lot of credibility because if the IFC believe in you and you get through all the hoops to raise that money, then that helps. So, often when I meet entrepreneurs, I say to them, well, I said, Jesus, that is a brilliant idea. But then they don't have the confidence and the kind of the air in their lungs to take it and spread the business and make it bigger.
Right.
And be more ambitious because entrepreneurs are always self-doubting. We all self-doubt ourselves. We say, really, how good are we? Okay. And we always think that we look at other people and say they're better than us. And, if I see somebody with a great business idea, I'm always saying to go, push on, raise more money, and develop your business as quickly as possible.
Were you like that too, Denis?
I was, yeah. It came naturally to me. But sometimes you get nervous. As we've developed our business in the last 10 years, there was phases of maybe a week or two a year where I would be, Jesus, what are we going to get,
Right.
As you go into a new market, you say, because you have to build your network in front of you, put a lot of money in, you've all your staff trained, and you're ready to pull the trigger, and you're not sure whether you're going to be successful. And we've only been not successful in one market out of 31 so far, which is not a bad, in our business, that's not a bad strike rate, okay? I'm not going to tell you the bad one, because it's just too embarrassing to tell you. But when we had a bad one, what we did was we brought in some professors from, it wasn't Harvard, it was Columbia. And we got them to write a case study about the complete mess we made of this opportunity in a country.
So without telling us which country it was, what did you do wrong?
What did we do wrong? We had the wrong spectrum. Okay. We underestimated the amount of towers we needed to cover the country. And we launched too early, when the network wasn't right. So we got to number 2 in this country, okay? Now the fortunate thing is we were able to get all our money back because we got out of the country. But you know, and when we got these professors in, my board and the management were all saying, you know, why are you doing this? And you know, there was huge resistance. And I said, no, I don't give a shit. I said, we should learn from this, and we should document everything we made, all the mistakes we made, so we can actually, as a company, hand it to our new colleagues who are coming in to work for us and say, you know, we're good, but we know how to screw up as well. And you know,
this is PG-17, by the way, if you haven't noticed.
So, you know, I think you need to be very honest with yourself in that. And I think, you know, what I always believe is in detail. You know, some entrepreneurs don't believe in looking at the financial accounts, that they're too busy with the product. And they're too busy developing, particularly in technology, the next version of the product without selling the first version. And you know, my eyes glaze over when I hear that, because I just lose interest completely. Is that, you know, you got to verify the product that you have and sell it. And if you're a technology entrepreneur and you can't sell, go and do a sales course quick. Because you know, if you're the person with the great idea, unless you can sell it, you know, to your new staff, your new colleagues, people you hire, your financiers, you know, if you're introverted, you need to learn how to sing in front of 200 people.
So you would need to essentially expand the network that you have, the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Did you have that? Did you have people around you that you could rely on, and that was part of the success?
Absolutely. But you got to look at it this way. You're in soccer terms, you're in the 4th division when you start off. So you have people who are working with you. Then you go up another league, and some of the people that are working with you don't make it to the next league. And then you go up again, and then you end up in the Premier League. And it's very difficult you can't be too sentimental, but you have to find, as people don't go up with you and raise your capabilities, you got to keep them still involved, because they're the whole glue.
They helped you get to that number 2.
They helped you get there. So the way you do that is give them shares, you know, be inclusive, you know, as if, you know, they're a founder, and you bring them with you. So that's what we've been trying to do, you know, all the way up, you know, as you go to the Premier League.
In how many markets are you in? Digicel?
In 2031, our smallest market is in Nauru, which is in the Pacific. It's a phosphate mine, basically. And there's 12,000 people there, and the government invited us in, and the the Koreans, I think, paid for the network. We didn't have to pay for the network. We make $3 or $4 million a year there. Nauru is a place where they bring boat people. This is the bad side. Boat people who are trying to get into Australia. The Australian government have put these camps in. And we have a difficulty with that, because I said to our management team in Nauru, which I met them in LA, and said, listen, go and get, you know, 800 phones and give every one of those refugees a free phone, and we'll give them free calls every month. You know, a certain number of free calls, not unlimited.
Right.
So they went back to the Australians, and the Australians said no. So I said to them, that is ridiculous. I said, you know, that's a basic human right to have a phone. So my latest project is to get, you know, those things for blowing out T-shirts into the crowd?
Right, into concerts and what?
So we're going to actually blow them over the fence into the camp. So we've threatened to do that. Now we're trying to find a way of doing it peacefully. But you can't have a situation where you've got refugees and they can't make a phone call. I mean, their loved ones are back in Sri Lanka or some country,
Right.
and they don't know whether they ever made it to Australia.
Isn't Nauru one of the small islands that's going to be sinking in next 25, 30 years?
It is under pressure.
Right.
It's more in some of the other really small ones in the Marshall Islands, for example.
Yeah, I believe they're
Yeah.
trying to have the Australian government to give them a little bit of territory so they can all move to Australia.
I doubt the Australians will do that now. They're not that benevolent.
You can shoot them around to Australia, right?
The Australians don't, they treat immigrants from Europe very
Do we have
well.
Australians here by any chance? All right, go ahead, bash.
Okay.
It's all right.
I'm not going to bash them. No, but look, the Australians are worried, okay, that all these people are going to come to their country. But I
Right.
think on the flip side is people are moving because they have to. They're doing it for they're really economic migrants, if you like to call it. But they should be treated properly and sent back to Sri Lanka or wherever they're from. But they should also be able to make a phone call. Now, and sorry, this is nothing to do with entrepreneurship. This is a kind of a different subject.
Still, you're treating, even if it's not today's customer, you're treating a potential customer. You're giving them an opportunity, and they can turn into a customer. What are your expansion plans? You're in 31 markets. I understand a lot of them in the Caribbean.
Yeah, we're in Caribbean, and then we're in Panama, in El Salvador. And then we're out in the Pacific, Nauru, Fiji, Vanuatu, Samoa, and Papua New Guinea. And now we're trying to we're in the last 12. There was 90 companies that expressed an interest to get a license in Myanmar, which is Burma. And we're down to the last 12, and in 2 weeks' time, we put in our bid. We've been working on this bid for 18 months.
Wow.
So we have 1,000 people working in Myanmar at the moment, working on this.
How many people do you have working for you now?
About maybe in different business, maybe 8 to 10,000 or somewhere in that zone.
It's not the same as 2-3 people you had, right?
No, it's very difficult to get around to them all, to be honest with you. But if we go to a lot of trouble to communicate what the plan is, and you got to be able to tell people. Now, at the moment, everybody in our company everywhere knows about Myanmar because we're the smallest of the 12. We're up against China Mobile, Vodafone, okay? So we're up against the big boys, okay? But that's a good thing as well because it kind of gets everybody going.
The number of customers you have, is it public information?
Yeah, we've 13 million customers.
13 million.
Yeah, Myanmar has 63 million people in it.
Oh, so it's going to be a great expansion.
It's a game changer.
Right.
So we've put a lot of effort into it. It's a big stretch. And it's ambitious, but you have to jump for the ball when the ball is coming through the air.
So I'm sure you had in your life number of game changers, right? That took you from one to another. What type of a game changer are you looking at this?
Well, I think you got to be careful because no matter what business you own, you don't want to risk the ranch. In other words, you don't want to blow up your existing. You have a mothership all the time that needs to be impenetrable. So. If you have your business, don't take a risk that's going to sink your business. In other words, don't overextend yourself. It's kind of common sense, really. But sometimes common sense, euphoria takes over from common sense.
I wish I didn't know what that meant.
From our point of view, this is a game changer, but we know how much capital we're going to risk. And we have a hard circle around that.
Okay.
And we have very good partners as well, so we've shared the risk as well. So if a country doesn't work out for us, it doesn't sink the ship. And that's a really important thing. And the other thing is we meet every management team from 31 countries every month as a board. And they come in, the management team will come in and present. And they will give us a report on their country, everything from politics, economics, everything about that country, so we understand it. They will show us TV ads of all our competitors. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at a country like Panama, we really understand it because every month we meet the management team, we see what's happening in the market. And the market is moving, a consumer market that we're in is moving all the time. So we're very hands-on, and that's the only way, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, you got to be hands-on, and you got to really understand everything that's happening in your business, and the discipline of producing monthly accounts that will be ready to go 7 months after the end of the month. You know, have a proper cash flow, a proper report. I get a list of every salesperson in our company and who's on target and who's off target. Okay, so I mean, everybody says, well, that's an overload of information. I actually don't think so, because if you're operating in so many different places, you really, really have to understand the detail.
Do you have a time on the day when you would look into these things, or as they come?
We get them on an iPad, the board, and we read them on the way to the meeting. And normally it's a 7-hour flight. It could be 20-hour flight sometimes, if we're going to, you know, down to Asia. And you've plenty of time to study it. And then I keep sheets, foolscaps, you know, block jotters of sheets of the performance in the key things that I pick out, not just revenues, for the last year that I bring. So I can go back and say to the CEO, you told me, you know, in January that you would get, you know, ICT sales of, you know, X thousand, you didn't get it. And that, like, he's kind of saying, oh my God, how did he remember that? But it's all down to having a few pieces of paper and keeping an idea of it. And I think that if you can train yourself to be detailed, I worked for a guy who was a hound for detail, okay? He set up this aircraft leasing company in Ireland. He was the founder of Ryanair, which is like Southwest Airlines, a guy called Tony Ryan. And I went to work for him as his PA, and I was his dog's body. I did everything, okay? And he had a farm, okay? So after 1 week with him, okay, I used to live in his house on the estate, okay? It was a nightmare, but great training. He used to get up at 6 in the morning, we'd get into his car, his driver would drive at 100 miles an hour to the office in Shannon, County Clare in Ireland, and he'd open his briefcase and he'd have a pad, and he'd ask me, you know the 82 cows on the farm last week, how many gallons of milk did they produce? And I'd look at him and I'd say, I thought at first he was, you know, joking, but he was deadly serious. And he wanted to know his farm, what he was producing, and what was the milk check from the co-op, the cooperative, because you say in Ireland everybody sells the milk to a cooperative.
Right.
And then he would ask me questions that so I used to take out a pad as well. I was like a garden gnome beside him, and I would write down everything, you know what I mean, and all the questions, and I'd have so much information for him. Now this sounds as if you're into too much in the detail. Now there's a balance here, but you know it's all about making the people accountable. And you know, if you have a business of say 5 people in a technology business, and you have a salesperson who's going out to sell your technology, like unless you're as good as them, and understanding the customer and understand the technology, you know, they'll run rings around you. And it's all about pushing the accountability. That's why we have these monthly meetings, is accountability. Everybody knows all the way down through the chain, they got to deliver, they got to deliver, they got to deliver.
And if they don't?
You know, they nearly always do deliver. And sometimes somebody can have a bad patch. We're not a hire and fire organization.
You teach them, you train them, you try to make them better?
Train them to death, nearly, until they just say, hey, I'm going to deliver, you know? And that's, you can do this in a small company as well. I mean, don't think that this is kind of big talk, company talk. It's actually small management, you know, micromanagement, but it's making sure everybody knows what they have to do. And the thing, I've invested in technology, always the biggest disappointment has been the lack of sales. And there are very few technology companies that start up and hit their numbers for their investors. And you know, the biggest example is Facebook. You know, they missed their numbers post their IPO. Disaster, okay? Inexcusable, okay, in a way, because you know, every day how much revenue you're generating because they've no stock. So, you know, from your point of view is really go get selling. And when I meet people in an elevator in our headquarters, I ask them, what did you bring in today? In other words, what revenue did you bring? Did you get me any new customers? because unless people understand, people in business talk about all this nonsense in business, make it all complicated, but it's revenue in, costs, profit, okay? So everybody has to think about revenue. I said to a woman on Monday, I said, we have no mobile advertising revenue. I said, in 3 years' time, we want to get to $100 million. And I said, I don't think you're a believer. And I said, if you're not a believer, tell me, because I need to find somebody who's going to do that. And she's saying, well, the customer experience, they don't want to get advertising. I said, you're not a believer.
Right.
Well, we're going to set up an innovation group. I said, you are in your arse. I said, an innovation group is nonsense. I want a revenue group, not an innovation group, because innovation is kind of a bucket that, good people, dreamers, fantasists all go into.
Sorry, Enrico.
Okay.
We love you. I know you're head of innovation of Chrysler. It doesn't pertain to you.
Chrysler has great of innovation, so don't worry about that, okay? Your cars are flying off out of the lots. But, unless you think, and I'm sure, you're trying to get revenue, you're trying to sell new cars and innovative cars and all that stuff. But unless you actually get the person, you say, shake them by the neck and say, revenue, forget about the word innovation, revenue.
So I pretty soon I want to open up a conversation with our student young
What's your
entrepreneurs.
worst
here.
and best business?
I'm sorry?
What's your worst and best business?
Worst and best?
Yeah.
Oh, God. My worst, that's easy. I started this company, I want to say when I was 18 years old, and I called it Natural Remedy Resources. With some people in Chicago, went ahead and put a lot of money into this, build the product, had them make the product, and I want to say I was probably one of the few people that actually bought it and used it, and I regretted myself for using it too. So it really ended up disastrous. But it taught me a lot about what types of businesses. Did I dream?
Yeah,
not with that. Not with that, because it wasn't mine, and that's actually one lesson that I learned at 18.
Yeah.
Don't touch anything that is not mine. Meaning, for me to have a true passion and feeling for, not go after money, but go after passion and try to make a living out of it. And that was not it. That was not it.
And how long did it take you to realize that it was not the right
one?
one?
It was, I just opened an office, made maybe 10 trips a month for a couple of months, going back and forth to Chicago, trying to deal with the manufacturers and whatnot. And I want to say maybe at 8 months down the line, I realized it's 8 months too long. It was not what I should have been doing.
And what about your best then?
Well, I had a number of interesting things. I haven't made my first $1 billion yet, and I'm going to look for you to help me understand how that's done. I gave an anecdote earlier on my first business when I was 17 years old. I started this. You would think it was the dumbest business to start, but I was a 17-year-old kid, and I started making some $50,000 a month by just selling flowers.
Jesus. $50K a month, and you're 17?
Yeah.
And what did you do?
Oh, God.
If
I were only smarter. The thing is, when I grew up, I didn't have anything in life, really nothing. And I just blew it on everything that I didn't have. You're laughing. I was worse than a prima donna woman. I had over 50 pairs of shoes in one of the closets.
Oh, my God. I love it.
That was nuts. That was nuts.
50,000 a month at 17.
At 17.
That's like Justin Bieber.
With no talent.
But he doesn't have much talent either.
So that was a great experience. That lasted about a year or so. Got tired of that because I worked in, it's a night business. You would sell flowers at restaurants. A lot had to do with my salespeople. You brought about people. I had this one particular young lady. She would go into, okay, get this, and this is, I don't know how she managed. So she would go with a basket of flowers, with 40 flowers, $10, so she could most walk away from that location with $400. She would walk away with $600, $700, and she had no idea. She would bring it, she would bring the money like this, she would just take it out just like this and just put it down, and she was so honest. She would just put it down, and then we would count, and we would say, how did you manage? Where is the basket? She would just sell everything.
Do you have her name and address? Do you have her email? Do you?
Including the basket.
Fantastic.
So when we would go out with her,
Yeah.
now, we learned to buy baskets.
Fantastic. So she'd sell the basket.
She would sell the basket.
It's fantastic.
It,
That's a great one.
it was really, really, really amazing
Yeah.
how she would do business. And we learned, and we tried to hire, you always try to mimic, right? Your best
Yeah.
salesperson, you want to
Yeah.
go hire the next salesperson. And it's just, some people just have it.
Yeah.
And
It's a hell of a business. Like,
yeah. But the best is, I guess, Athgo is a nonprofit naturally, so we're not here to make money, but this really spoke to my heart. And we've been doing this for 10 years, bringing these types of opportunities. And this has been really rewarding because I think Amal is here now. Where are you, Amal? Oh, there you go. Hi. She was Amal with us. Hi, just get up for a second.
You are not the flower seller, are you?
She is better than that. Amal was here with us last time when we were here. And how old are you now? 25? Older. All right, so a year passed. So Amal was like you guys in one of the teams, and her team of 5 came up with this brilliant idea of creating solar backpacks.
Oh, yeah.
And it was an idea that just came from here.
Yeah.
Amal and her team went and did it.
It's a fantastic idea.
And meeting people like Amal has been the biggest success for me because I know that what we do here is going to you guys. I know there is a lot of rolling eyes. You're still trying to get used to and trying to understand what's happening here. On Friday, you're going to be crying. You're going to get very emotional.
And
because
how many in the room have set up their own business right now? Wow. Okay. Yeah. And how many of you will set up your own business in the next 6 months?
how about next 3 days?
Well, okay. So maybe a third have started, a third are about to, and a third are not sure.
Well, the point of this is the following, and it's actually a good point that you're bringing. Entrepreneurship is never a solo venture,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You would need skills that will make the venture successful.
Yeah.
So many of these young folks here are going to be providing those tools that are
Yeah.
going to. I think you mentioned earlier, wherever your weakness is, try to bring and plug the right people for those.
Yeah.
And I guess for Amal, your team was such that everything came together in such ways that you were successful.
Yeah.
And so many of the teams are going to have a similar experience here. Now, I want to ask you something on a personal note, and then we'll open this up for you guys to speak to Denis a little bit. If you were 24, like 5 years ago,
I'm not
Would
sure
you-
I get away with that.
would you
The Botox is not working.
would you do anything different?
No, because it was just very hard. I've got to be honest with you, and definitely. You make mistakes in trusting some people that maybe let you down, but that's always going to happen in life. People join you and then they might go and steal your idea. That's the way it is.
Correct.
But not really, because I wouldn't like to be 25 again. I'm sorry to say that, because it was just the stress of, I ran out of money 5 or 6 times. And it was like living on a cliff in the west of Ireland overlooking the Atlantic. And you're all the time like nearly going over the cliff because you have no money.
We've done this on the Pacific side,
And then, but then, the quicker you get inland, the better.
of course.
And, it took me a long time to get off that cliff.
When you say you almost ran out of money, what does that mean to you?
At 30, I had to go and borrow $25,000 from my father, which was, a major setback to me, because I couldn't meet payroll.
Right.
And I'll tell you, it's a very interesting story, okay? There was this guy in Ireland, and he was going to put in £250,000 into my company. And he took 3 months to make a decision. And then all through Christmas into the New Year. And eventually he said, you know, instead of putting the 250 in for 20% of the business, I'll put the 250 in for 50% of the business. So I actually told him to F. Okay? So 5 years later, we IPO'd in New York. And on the way home, I bought a business class fare. I said, I deserve a business class fare. I've gone economy for years. And who's sitting in front of me but the guy who tried to steal me? And we had just IPO'd the business for $250 million of value, okay? And his shares would have been worth, and there would have been rounds of finance and dilution, but they would have been worth maybe 50, okay? He knew that. I knew that, but we said nothing. And sometimes evilness, or bad faith, well, I think there's bad faith in this case, okay? Just doesn't work out, So
Makes you stronger in a way, though.
it makes you stronger, and it makes you just a little bit harder, Because, there's nothing worse than a slow no when you're raising money. And sometimes we're all so optimistic we can't see when we're talking to the person across the table that they have no intention of giving you the money in the first place. And your optimism says, well, he's having a bad day and he's just a bit negative, but I can turn him around or her around. And time is so valuable when you're raising money because you've got people employed and you're trying to keep going and you're going to run out of money. So, it's actually being pretty tough on yourself to say, don't be too optimistic. If you're getting a no, take the no, move on.
Right. Saves you time.
Saves time.
All right, so we're going to open for Q&A for you guys. Let's call the gentleman right over. Yeah? No, you. Yeah? Trying to get people who haven't spoken.
Mr. O'Brien, thank you
Don't
very
call me
much.
mister now. I'm not making, please. Dennis. Thanks a million. Yeah.
Think of the both.
My name is Jesse Alton. I am a entrepreneurship major from Annapolis, Maryland.
Great.
And I really liked when you said that we all self-doubt. And we look at others as being better than us.
Mm-hmm.
Although I truly believe that I will be the next Carnegie, and I will be loaded before I die. It's very hard to keep going. Just to sum up, my venture is in flip-flops. I look like a shoe guy. I'm not that into feet. But it gets pretty hard to constantly be on that cliff. What would you recommend to somebody who is constantly on that cliff?
Try and raise a bit more money than you think you need. So, at the moment, I don't know how much money you probably need to exploit your product.
Sadly, $1,000.
$1,000, okay. Ask for 1,500 or 5,000. 5,000 sounds a better number because you won't do it for less, I don't believe. And I would try and do friends and family before you go to formal, that amount of money, you kind of got to go to friends and family. And you raise it, and you issue them the shares, and you do everything proper, and you make sure the documentation is done well. And that's how you would do it. But raise more money than you think you need. And good luck.
Very good.
Okay?
The lady right over there. Or we'll go with the gentleman. Let me call on the people. Don't give the mics out first. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Doug Patson. I go to school in upstate New York. I have a question about the wireless industry and its future, specifically Clearwire. What are your thoughts on what they did in terms of getting the education spectrum? And do you think they were too early? Or do you think there's a future for wholesale wireless providers both in the U.S. and around the world?
I think Clearwire was the biggest problem. Clearwire was the size of the market that they were trying to, exploit, and they built out their network partially. You got Sprint now, paying quite a big amount of money to buy them over, and that should solidify them. And then SoftBank, and then your man Charlie Erdogan from Dish is trying to buy Sprint. So I think the concept is very, very good. The technology is pretty good as well. And what has happened in the last 4 years in the wireless industry is spectrum. Spectrum now is the most important asset that you can have. Now, it sounds like a no-brainer, but people who have amassed blocks of spectrum in FCC auctions are the people who are going to win out in the end. What I don't understand, though, coming in from the airport this afternoon, my call broke 4 times. And this is the center of the world.
Right.
And the US is on CDMA, which is better than 1900 spectrum, but it's kind of ridiculous that the TV guys have ended up with all the good spectrum, and the mobile communications, which is far bigger aspect of GDP or GNP, have the shitty spectrum.
Well, there was a young lady right
sorry.
over there.
Hi, my name's Cassie Aran. I'm from South Jersey. And my question is, when you were a kid, did you do anything entrepreneurship related, like sell postcards or something small like that?
Yeah, I did. I had a painting and decorating business, house painting business, when I was in university in Ireland. In Ireland, you had to get an honours in mathematics in a state exam to get into study business, and I failed pass maths, okay, was the lowest grade of mathematics twice, and I couldn't get into study business. So I did history and politics. That was only like 10 hours of lectures a week. And so I set up this decorating business where we'd paint offices, because people in offices were not price sensitive of what you charge them to paint up their offices and do it at night time, which was the convenience thing. So we had a business, my partner and I had a business that we were making not as good as his business, by the looks of it, paltry in comparison, but maybe 400 a week. And that was in, the 70s, early 80s. So that was okay. And that was my first business as such.
Thank you. Someone right there in the middle.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. My name is BH. I'm here in Washington, D.C. I think there's definitely a shift in an idea of what an enticing market looks like, from something that has a large income to somewhere that has maybe lower income but higher aggregate buying power, which is the markets that you're working in. And as it becomes more appealing, though, there's also, in many of the places you're operating, huge risk factors, whether it's political instability, whether it's a lack of infrastructure. And so while I definitely agree with you, some people might not, because it is risky. So when you're going into these areas, what does your risk analysis look like? What are the key indicators you pay attention to? And ultimately, what brings you to the decision that this is a good investment?
You'd be horrified, okay?
No, it's okay. Horrify me.
I never read World Bank reports. I never read the Economist Intelligence Unit reports on countries, because they never will reflect the real cash economy of a country, like, for example, in Haiti. That, there is a whole layer of the economy that is just cash that no GDP or GNP figure will ever work out, no matter how good they are. And when we went to Haiti, first of all, we landed in Port-au-Prince one morning. We took a high-ace taxi around town, myself and our CEO, and we were there for maybe 2 hours driving around Port-au-Prince. And the thing that struck me, that really drove home the opportunity, was that everybody was on the side of the road buying and selling fruit, vegetables, car parts, second-hand clothes, electronics, second-hand shoes, everything. And there was cash all the time, okay? And not one of them with a phone. So we drove around, went back to the airport, got on the plane and went off. And I said to the CEO, "What do you think?" And he looked at me, he just said, "It's a ringer," okay? We never met anybody, okay? And we made an investment to invest in Haiti. And, sometimes people overanalyze opportunities in emerging markets. But if you have a business that is a basic business, okay, whether it's rice or whatever, and there's a demand in that country, I wouldn't read reports. I just think you go in and take a risk, and again, don't risk the ranch, and you create a product or a service and you go and do it. And sometimes, entrepreneurs, write these beautiful business plans, okay, that are like Booker prizes, okay, or they'd win the New York Times Book of the Month, okay. Instead of going and doing it like and do it in 5 or 6 weeks, do your research and then pull the trigger, they keep writing it for 6 months, which I think is ridiculous. So, you know, if you have your idea, okay, your basic idea, document it, say, well, here's the plan, go and raise 10,000 there, 5,000 there, 10,000 there, issue the share certificates, go and get somebody who is knowledgeable and who has a Rolodex of people in that industry who knows what, you know, all the people in it, okay, even though you're going to do it in a more modern way, and a different way, a disruptive way, because you can't be me too, and you pull that trigger and you go like a sling into that market. So, you know, I couldn't function working for a big multinational that has layers and layers of reports and bullshit to make an investment. I just couldn't function in that area, and nor could anybody that I know,
Right.
okay? You just have to dive in and take the opportunity. Right now, there's an opportunity in rice in Haiti, okay? Because there's 4 families who are robbing the poor. When they import rice, they add a 50% margin to it. And if the weather is bad, they say there's a shortage, and they'll add another 25%. Now, rice is a staple product. In the developed world, it's around a 10%, 15% margin. So, you know, if there's anybody in the rice business, go to Haiti. Because, you know, it's a staple food, and what you have is the elite in that country absolutely ripping people off.
Denis, before I take another question and we're coming to a close,
Yeah.
I want you to maybe briefly, if you don't mind, tell the story of what you did in Haiti after you went there, after the disaster, after the earthquake.
Well, before we even built the network there, we got involved in waste recycling. We funded an NGO called Concern Worldwide, and they had about 300 or 400 women in Port-au-Prince taking plastic bottles out of rivers and, you know, bring them to be recycled. And when we started our business in Haiti, we made money immediately, okay? We made a huge amount of money. And we do not want to be like a lot of multinational companies where you go in and you rob the poor. So we've said to ourselves, in countries where we're working, where there's real poverty, we're going to do something transformative. So in Haiti now, for example, the government built 15 schools last year. We built about 70. So these schools would have 600 students in them. We take the teachers out and retrain them. We keep retraining them every 3 months. And now all the kids in those schools are getting the national exam results better than by about 40% than previously. So we have a whole team, like nearly as big as this room, of people in our headquarters in Haiti. All they do is build schools. They're project managers and improve education in, you know, all over the countryside, okay? Now, we can afford to do that, but, you know, if you're a Unilever, you could afford to do that, but you don't do it because you have stockholders, and anyway, you don't have to, because people will still buy your soap. In our case, we're saying, let's go back home in Ireland and sleep at night and say, I'm not robbing the poor, I'm making a profit in a country, but also I'm doing something that is interesting, but also is going to change education over a number of years. And this week I met with the Clinton Global Initiative guy. I said, how can we bring everybody, all NGOs who are building schools, and propel that, and let's build 250 schools, because children today in Haiti are educated under trees on benches. You know, they have no access to technology or anything. So we've done this also in Papua New Guinea. You know, in the middle of nowhere where there's no roads, we will drop schools in, train teachers, etc., and give basic medical health. Now, we make a lot of money in these countries, and I think that's a better. We do not want to be modern-day conquistadores. Now, I'm going way off subject, but I think, you know, when you do start to make money, and all of you will in this room, you know, pick something that's going to make a massive difference to the people that you're actually selling to. Sorry, I'm on a high horse.
We have only 1 minute because Denis needs to catch a flight. He needs to get out really quickly from here. So we'll take one. If it's very short and precise, we'll go to you.
My name is Abhishek, and I'm from Boston. I just want to ask you how you overcome like your business was very capital intensive because you have to set up cell phone towers and things like that. How do you overcome that? And for many entrepreneurs, that's an obstacle, because if you have a great idea but it requires a lot of investment, that, you know, if it requires $100 million of investment.
Sure.
Then,
Thank you.
Very good question. If you say in Jamaica, we set up that business with about $100 million of capital and we borrowed 50. The Jamaican business started making 30, 40, 50 million, $100 million very soon, okay? We then were able to say, okay, now we have 60 million of EBITDA. We could then go and raise 4 times that. So we could raise another, say, 200 million. And then we used that 200 million to go into Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada. And then all of them started making money, and then we raised more money. And we went into the bond market. So we raised money only a month ago, we raised $1 billion at 6%. Now, I think that's pretty cheap, to be honest with you. But we have raised money at the crisis at 12.5% in 2008 because I didn't know where the world was going, and I wanted to have that money under the bed. So the bond market for big, heavy capital infrastructure, the high yield market is the perfect finance mechanism to do that, okay? But, you know, if you're starting your business, bar leasing a car, you know, I don't think you can really go to a bank and get an overdraft of 10 or 20,000 because you've no sales. But, you know, as you build, you know, if you have a business that turns over $50,000 every 3 months, you know, or $200,000 a year, and you make 25 or 30, and you can show that to your bank, well, then you'll be able to raise money. But really, it's so tough at the beginning, and that's why I'm always saying raise more money. You know, if you have a 200,000 turnover business and it costs you 100,000 in infrastructure to get that business going, raise 150 in case you have a problem. So there are different sources of capital, you know, and then there's people who provide $1 million of equity. There's bigger guys do 10, 100, $500 million. So there's different people you can go to raise that money. But it starts, you know, in Boston, where you might go to your family and say, give me 30,000 for my idea. But I would treat them in a very professional way. I'd write to them every quarter and say, this is what we did. Because it's really good from a discipline, from your point of view, to show them how serious you're managing their money. And that will stand to you when you're raising the 30 or 40 million in a couple of years' time to roll out your idea.
Dennis, thank you. Thanks for coming here. It's a great honor to have you here, and it's a great honor also that you had to fly in, and now you're going to fly out, so it must be a burden. But
thank you, Armen. I really enjoyed it, and it's been terrific with you here. And, you know, it's great. You can kind of get the buzz of the entrepreneurs in the ether in this room.
Yes.
So I wish everybody every success with your ideas. If you fail, stop. Take stock where you failed, and then start something new immediately, okay? And look, the best of luck with everything you do. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.